Good morrow to you all. You have fallen on bad times.
Brought to you by the Royal Holloway Shakespeare Society.
You join me, Theo Dudridge.
And me, Subhan Hay, as we bear some bardy truths.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Bard Times. I am your host Theo Dudridge, and this week I am joined by former Shakespeare member / committee member, Sam Stevens. Say hi, Sam.
Hello. How are you doing, Theo?
I'm good, thank you, Sam. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastically. I just midway through the London Film Festival.
Nice. Subtle drop there. Subtle,
Yes.
drop.
Yeah, I mean that's not a segue into anything at all. But yeah, no. So I've been watching some films lately, and I've
Nice.
been doing some writing, and I've been doing all sorts, and it's good to see some Shakespeare Society again.
You love to see it. You love to see it. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, Sam Stevens was our publicity officer last year for Shakespeare Committee. You also designed the Bar Times logo, and as you can probably tell, this one's taken some kind of inspiration from last series as one. So yeah, I'm going to ask you the very important question. What do you think of the new logo?
I love the new Bad Times logo. I mean, it's got headphones and it looks like Shakespeare, and it's identifiable. That's all you need. It's great. So yeah, I'm very happy with how Shakespeare Society publicity is going. It's great.
He was also in Love's Labour's Lost as Costard, and you've also done various kind of stuff with Drama Society, various kind of Macbeth and Unseen stuff.
Yeah.
So Sam, you've recently graduated from Royal Holloway. Can you tell us, well, you've already told us a little bit about where you are, what you're doing at the minute, but can you give us an idea of like sort of what you're doing, and there are any sort of future plans that you've got?
Okay. Well, so following on from my graduation back in June, what feels like a million years ago, from English and creative writing, I've been working at a wedding venue, and then recently I've
Nice.
been working for the British Film Institute, working on the team for the London Film Festival. So I've been selling people lots and lots of tickets to various films, including the wonderful Joel Cohen's tragedy of Macbeth, which
Oh
I
my
think
God.
we could talk about later. But
Yes,
but
let's
so
talk about this later.
I'm ruining your plans, I can
No,
tell.
no, don't. You're not ruining my plan. I have
Um,
no plan. I just have notes.
but yeah, so I've been working on that. I've been doing some writing and doing all sorts of stuff around London. But because of course I have to commute right through London to get from the northwest to the south.
Fun times, fun times.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's been really fun. And then for the rest of the year, I've just got some time before I start my master's at the London Film School doing screenwriting. So
Nice.
yeah, I've got some time, skills, some money to earn.
Incredible,
Yeah,
incredible.
some experience to get.
Nice, nice. You'll have to see it. You'll have to see it. So you did English and creative writing for your BA. So what sort of led you to kind of choosing that course, and sort of now based off what you're doing for your masters, what kind of led you down the path of sort of creative writing?
Well, I wasn't always planning on doing English and creative writing. In fact, the first time I applied to A levels, I wanted to do anthropology. But
Nice,
the only place I
nice.
wanted to do anthropology was at UCL, so I only ever applied to
Okay,
one university,
fair.
and I didn't get in.
Oh
Um,
no.
I mean, that's absolutely fine. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't think I was that invested in it because I only applied to one university, and I was planning on doing a gap year anyway. So
yeah,
I reapplied, and I thought, what other courses can I do? And I realized that I had been basing a lot of my ideas about what seemed like it could get me a job, what seemed like it would sound most sciencey or most career driven, and not
yeah,
something a little bit more on the arts side, which I suppose quite a lot of people have that sort of feeling towards the arts,
yeah,
that they have this sort of animosity that it's not a real course or it's not a real career.
yeah,
But I mean, the sheer amount of money in the arts, the sheer amount of jobs, the interest in the arts disproves that instantly. Um, so yeah, I thought I really like writing. In all forms. I've done various of short stories and things for English language and English literature, and it just seemed like it was something that I like, a good balance of something a little bit more academic, i.e. English literature, and then something a little bit more fun, creative writing. And
Yeah.
I hadn't even heard that you could do joint honors. I mean, not seriously, before I planned on doing this course. But yeah, it was perfect.
Yeah. As a fellow joint honors student currently,
Drama and classics, right?
drama and classics. I remember because I wasn't entirely sure what university I wanted to go to, because I knew I wanted to study drama in some capacity. I just didn't know where. It was actually completely by chance that a couple of friends of mine were like, oh yeah, we're doing an open day at this university called Royal Holloway, which isn't like centered in London, it's just on the outskirts of London. So I did some curious research, because I think it was at that point we'd all just like started up our UCAS accounts, and we were like looking and doing research into like uni courses and stuff. I discovered that they did classical studies and drama, which was great, because those were my two favorite A levels out of the three that I was doing. Rip history. But that history was fun. But my interests, I realized quite early on that my interests were in sort of classics and Greek kind of literature and history and drama. So those were what I wanted to pursue, and that kind of led me down that path. But yeah, could you talk about some of the short stories, projects and stuff that you have done for the uni, either for your degree or for, as I mentioned earlier, Matt being unseen? Because I've been in a couple of them.
You have. I mean, I've on the course, I've written a whole bunch of rubbish, and I've written a whole bunch of things that I'm proud of. And things which I've written for Matt B and Unseen, I'm definitely proud of on the whole. So I think, it's weird. You just get an idea, and normally you just like laugh it off and like you just finish it there. With Matt B and Unseen and showcases in general, you get the opportunity to develop it and see where it goes and let your mind sort of wander, because it's just short form. You don't have this pressure to build something grand that's like going to change everyone's world. You can just have a bit of fun, which is why I love those so much. And then specifically with yours, Invisible, that was one of my favorites, just because it was so much fun to make. I will remind people who probably didn't see it. It was about dating across parallel worlds, and Theo was one of the counterparts of one of these relationships. And so it sounds like just a bit of a laugh, but it gives opportunity to explore some slightly larger ideas about what it means to have relationships, what it means to be like separated from people, what like communication is defined as, and so that's why I like short form and why I like short form writing so much.
I think as well with that particular that particular kind of play, it was just a really intriguing concept. And think about how much kind of media is using like parallel universes, like multiverses. You look at Marvel's What If, so there's so much of that, and it was just a really kind of wacky but fun concept. And that's the great thing about like short form and like sketches and stuff like that. You really can just play with the bricks and see what kind of fits together and make some weird and wacky content from just ideas. What kind of spurs these ideas from you, Sam? How does your mind work?
Psychoanalysis. So I'd say, especially for short form, you have like you said, you get to play with the bricks, because in long form that would tire out the audience. That would make them think, this is some weird rubbish. I'm gonna stop watching, or I'm gonna walk out of the theater. That's the end of my day. But with short form, people don't get that opportunity. By the time they would want to walk out of the cinema or walk out of their seats, the thing's already over. So you can play with these things, which one of my professors defined as hunches. So it could be anything. It could be an image. It could be just a single line of dialogue. It can be an idea. So I think the idea for Invisible, about to call it Invisible Dating, but that's the name of the company in the actual piece. But the idea for that was, what if there were parallel universes, like what would companies do about that? How would they take advantage of that? Because companies take
Yeah.
advantage of everything. And I let my mind run from that. More recently, what was a recent piece? So I did a piece for Unseen recently called Cold Call Warm Heart,
Oh yeah.
which was essentially a woman on a call center who accidentally calls up one of her fellow colleagues, and it just
Okay.
goes from there. And that was the hunch. It was just, what happens if you're working on some job like that, where you're calling people, and suddenly you're talking to someone who's in your exact same situation, almost like a mirror, and being able to see a connection through that, because it's very isolating when you're dealing with lots and lots of people in customer service.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's what I would say is my inspiration. Just these hunches. It could be literally anything, and then you let it develop from there with no holds barred. No holds barred. Can't even talk. No holds barred.
Incredible.
Because
Incredible.
you can just let it run away with you.
So Sam, you've talked about some of the short form stuff that you've written. Have you written any long form, by the way? Is that something you've dabbled into?
I have, Mr. Theo Dudgeridge.
Incredible, incredible.
So I'd say the longest piece of work that I worked on as a solo project was in my third year. I worked on a 60-page play, which actually took quite a lot of inspiration from Shakespeare.
Oh, nice.
So it was set in a medieval Bohemian monastery,
Nice.
and it's based on a real legend. If that makes any sense. The legend is probably not real, but it's certainly a real legend. Whereby this book is the largest medieval book still in existence. Supposedly it's haunted, and it was partially written by the devil, and it's also all sorts of wonderful happenings go on in this monastery. And I tried to use quite a lot of Shakespeare's dramatic techniques, i.e. mistaken identities and inciting incidents where the player, where the character takes actions which then lead them down paths, and all sorts of dramatic turns and twists, which I wouldn't normally lean on. I would normally just follow our character as they just go about their day. But especially with long form, you need to take these twists and turns. You need to give them ultimatums. You need to make them make wrong decisions, which then have consequences. Because if you don't have consequences, and you don't have things where you go, oh my God, what's the character going to do next? Because they have to get out of the situation. I mean, then long form writing just goes dead. You need to have something where either the reader or the audience, they're hooked. So I'd say that's where I took the inspiration from Shakespeare from. But I mean, the actual story I took largely from the actual legend. So it was already written for me, basically. I just had to fill in the gaps. And filling in those gaps was certainly fun. You can make it go as wacky as you like. So that's my experience with long form. I'm currently working on a project for a sitcom, so I'm just working through a TV Bible. Which I've never done that properly before. I had one module in third year where we worked on it was a sort of dramatized documentary, and so I worked in a team project developing a TV Bible for that. I haven't worked on something like this, so it's fun. Currently it's just in project development, and it's just for fun to an extent. But it would be really nice to be able to have something which I could say, hey, I've got this piece of writing, I've got this TV Bible. Would you be interested in it in future?
That would be incredible. You just get given this Bible by Sam Stevens that's like, hello, please put this on. But no, it's interesting that you drew inspiration from Shakespeare. Because like I think there are a lot of narrative and kind of storytelling like things in Shakespeare that work really well and can be applied to a lot of things. I mean, one of the things, I mean, going back to degree stuff, one of my modules this year is Shakespeare on Camera, and we look at different kind of adaptations, filmic ways of doing Shakespeare, some of which are like really kind of compelling, just really kind of great piece of narrative. others are Prospero's books.
Mm.
If you've if anyone has seen Prospero's books, you'll understand. But Prospero's books is an interesting take on Shakespeare. I won't go into the context of
No?
Prospero's books or content of Prospero's books.
Is it weird?
It's very weird. It's very weird.
That's good. That's good. I like weird things.
It's weird. That's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, so finally, before we move on to the news, any advice for people wanting to write original work or get into sort of creative writing, long form, short form, for the uni, not for the uni, for a society, or just for fun?
Sure. 1, write some things. 2, ask people around you to read those things and suggest advice. 3, completely scrap what you originally wrote and write something different based on those new ideas. And then 4, once you have something which you're vaguely proud of, but then feel completely distant from because you've changed it completely, give it to people and say, I'd like this to be made. Once you have something written, it's fairly easy to get it made in some form, like because there are showcases, there are people that want to make things. Even if that's yourself, once you've got a piece of work which you think is ready, that's the stage you want to be at. Having a blank page or having a piece of work which you wrote ages and ages ago, which you're not completely proud of, that's the stumbling block which people quite often can't manage to get past, because you've got this brilliant idea, but it's actually putting it down on paper or on a document. That's what turns it from being something which is just up in the air to something concrete. And to be honest, it's a harsh lesson to learn, and I think I'm still learning it. But ideas are a penny a pound. Like you can think of ideas off the top of your head very, very quickly. And with the right writer, with the right developer, any idea can be made into something good. It's about the process of making that, which I think really makes the difference. You've got to be able to practice and not rely on these ideas that you think that's the idea which I'm holding sacrosanct. So yeah, that's my advice for writing original work. Don't be hung up on your own ideas, because that will ruin a piece of writing. Be able to take on board advice, be able to scrap your own ideas, as they say, kill your darlings. So that would be my advice.
Incredible. And that is genuinely, that is great advice. I kind of wish I knew that before doing script writing last year, but no, it's like that. Genuinely, that is incredible advice. You love to see it. So we're now moving on to the news. So as we kind of talked about a while back, you kind of preempted this next topic. Segue. There is a film trailer that came out a few weeks ago for a very famous Shakespeare play called Macbeth.
One of my favorites.
It's one of mine as well. It is my favorite Shakespeare play as well. I think GCSE has kind of drilled it into me. I've actually gained a heart for the play, weirdly. But yeah, this is directed by a singular Coen brother. And we had a little bit of a show kind of pre-discussion about this. And, you know, you can see a lot of the Coen brother kind of influence in the 50-second trailer. And if you've seen, those of you who have seen other Coen brothers films or know of other Coen brothers works, then I think there are quite a lot of good parallels. Let's talk about this. What do you want?
Well, I mean, in terms of visuals, just a brief description. It's black and white. It's shot in quite a sort of short aspect ratio. It's definitely not widescreen, so it looks very vintage, but it's incredibly sharp and like it definitely feels like a Coen Brothers film. But you know what it reminds me of? The Lighthouse. In terms of visuals, it's got these sort of really sort of sharp, striking images. So yeah, Joel Coen has done a fantastic job with this. The Tragedy of Macbeth, out on the 17th of October, from the international premiere at the Royal Festival Hall as part of the BFI London Film Festival, starring Denzel Washington and Frances McDormand. Yeah, I'm a big fan, and I'm very excited. I'm not going to actually get to see that, but yeah, I mean, what he's done with what I mean, quite a lot of people would say is just like overdone, because Macbeth
Yeah.
has been done a million times in one.
Oh yeah.
Like it does look like a fresh take,
Yeah.
and it's got his own unique flavor in it. Yeah. So I think I'm very excited to read some of the reviews once it hits the premiere.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I know. I mean, having sold tickets to everyone to that for that premiere, I know how excited people are for this.
Are there tickets still available?
I mean,
I feel like no. Yeah.
no, and yes. People can they can queue up at the Royal Festival Hall. Well, not the real Royal Festival Hall, about 100 meters away from the Royal Festival Hall, to be specific.
Nice.
But you can queue up and get tickets, and there might be tickets which get released. But it's so incredibly popular. I know it's lovely to see how excited people are about Shakespeare.
That is. I think that's just the thing I've been looking forward to, especially since Freshers Week started, and things kind of slowly opening back up again.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you this because there should be announcements going up soon, but we recently got confirmation that we can do another Shakespeare D&D event.
I'm very excited to see that.
It's going to be an in-person one. I think we're going to possibly do an online one next term, but that hasn't been confirmed yet. And it will come out some point soon, but I can exclusively reveal, because I'm also DMing it. We're taking inspiration from a certain forest in Athens for the next Shakespeare D&D event.
I'm very excited.
So expect some mischief, magic, and mayhem is all I'm gonna say in regards to that. But yeah, no, as you were saying, the Shakespeare is returning to its kind of popular roots in just like pop culture and stuff generally. I mean, I would love to see this film. It comes out on like Christmas Day, I think, outside of the film festival, and then it comes to Apple TV in like January, I think.
Yeah,
it's definitely a film I want to try and watch in some capacity. Legally, obviously.
It looks like a film which would be good to see in cinemas. It looks like those images on a big screen in front of you will be very impressive.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's the same with any A24 film. I mean, they're known for their horrors, and it looks like a horror. I mean, it feels like a horror. It's got that energy to it. But yeah, I can imagine that being. I can imagine the people leaving the cinemas feeling a bit shaken by what they've seen.
I think as well with the content of Macbeth. I mean, I've never seen a production of Macbeth, both kind of as a play or like a film production. It's really gone full horror, because there's the elements of the supernatural. There's like the literal murder and like manipulation side. You could really kind of play into that, and I feel like that this film is going to at least go deeper than most other adaptations of Macbeth have gone before. So I'm really excited to hear / hopefully see the kind of fruits of the labor of this film. So looking forward to it.
It looks good.
So we're now going to go into the review section, and so Sam, you've read and seen a few things, but I'm intrigued about this. You've recently got back into so you've been recently reading some Roald Dahl short stories, which instantly brings me back to my childhood. So how did you find those after all these years?
Well, these aren't children's stories. These are Roald Dahl's adult stories.
Okay.
So he was actually quite famous, especially throughout, I believe, the 80s, for writing some extremely dark, macabre short stories. So whilst he was probably most famous for his children's stories, there's tons and tons of short stories. You might have heard Tales of the Unexpected. That was something which Roald Dahl worked on, and each of them has some sort of trickery or deceit or deception or something where something goes wrong, and it just leaves you feeling a little bit cold, and it's
Yeah.
wonderful. I've been a fan for ages. I will tell this over and over again, but I grew up in the town where Roald Dahl lived.
Incredible.
I worked in the library, which was the inspiration for Matilda, and everyone always hates me when I mention that yet again. Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of that. And the news that Roald Dahl's entire works have been bought, or the rights to work on them have been bought by Netflix, is extremely exciting.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, there's so many books which haven't been developed. I'm especially looking forward to the Min Pins, which is essentially the borrowers with mole monsters in a forest.
Nice.
That's simply put. It's wonderful. I think it's got the opportunity to be taken in lots of different ways. It could be extremely lighthearted. It could be funny. It could be very sort of dark and unsettling. Yeah, that's what I love about Roald Dahl. Even his adult stories, they could be done in a lighthearted way or a dark way. It's got a beautiful sort of mix of the two.
Incredible. And you've also seen the new Netflix series Squid Game, which I have not seen, but I know exactly what happens because I watched the spoiler reviews.
Oh no!
Well, no, it's fine. This is the thing. There haven't really been shows recently that I've really kind of wanted / had time to see. I mean, they've recently announced the new Doctor Who Flux, which intrigues me a lot. But I haven't really had a chance to watch, other than like stuff for modules and things. I've not really had a chance to watch anything new, but I've been keeping up with news on certain films that have come out on certain series. And one of the films one of the series is that I knew was coming out, didn't think I'd watch it, but it sort of intrigued me, was Squid Game. And the premise behind it, the twist at the end.
Yes.
I
didn't see that coming. I did not see that coming.
Fair.
Yeah, no, it's extremely enjoyable. I've only recently heard news that apparently I've been watching the wrong subtitles. There's two types of subtitles on Netflix, and the closed caption ones you're supposed to avoid because it changes them. I don't know if it changes the meaning.
Fair.
And I was, at the end of the day, 90% of a film, especially, but any sort of performance, is the staging, the costumes, the visuals. It's the actions the characters take, and you can work around that. So a few lines being different, it's not going to change your entire experience.
Yeah.
I've watched quite a few translations recently, which to an extent does have its relation to Shakespeare. I mean, when you're working on Shakespeare, you have to translate it to an extent, because you have to translate the ideas from stage to film or stage to stage. You have to translate some of the words. So yeah, I think it's interesting to see what people consider right or wrong when it comes to translations and adaptations. I think people are too fussy with all of that. I think Squid Game is extremely enjoyable, no matter how you watch it, whether that's subtitled or dubbed. It doesn't really matter as long as you enjoy it. It was extremely dark and gruesome and extremely enjoyable, extremely fun. The only complaint I had is that it was quite slow. I feel like instead of a 9-part series,
I think so, yeah, like 8 or 9 parts, I want to say.
An hour per episode. I think it could have been made into a film or two, feature length. But no, I'm excited to see if they have another season, what happens with that. I don't know how they take that, but it was a very fun watch. I highly recommend.
Thank you very much, and I probably will, even though I know what happens. I probably will give it a watch at some point.
Yeah, well, I was recommending to our audience.
It's true. Yeah, it's true.
It's especially
watch Squid Game,
especially the first or 2 episodes, because then at least you can get a feel for the premise.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's just about all we have time for today. So.
Okay.
Once again, thank you so much, Sam Stevens, for being my guest on Bar Times.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Bard Times. I have been your host, Theo Dudridge, and in the words of the Bard himself, suit the action to the word to the action. Take care, everyone.